like to ask the Minister for Environment, Food and Agriculture what progress has been made with the operation of the new meat plant company and reviewing the agricultural development scheme, and if he will make a statement.
For the Minister for Environment, Food and Agriculture to reply.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. I thank the Honourable Member for Garff for her questions and will attempt to cover each in turn. The meat plant has officially been operated by the newly formed Isle of Man Meat Company since 29th of March this year. Clear progress has been made in regards to the efficiency of operation of the abattoir and improvements in throughput of livestock. The new management team has also recently been appointed. Whilst initial management accounts also show an improvement in financial performance, there is still much to be done, particularly around sales and identifying a strategic partner or partners. The recent weather is also creating significant challenges with regard to stock availability, which will likely worsen through the autumn and winter as farmers run low on fodder and straw, and my officers are working with the company to try and minimise the impacts on the business and wider industry. I am aware that reflecting market conditions, they have slowed intake in the last couple of weeks. However, it is important to acknowledge that they are rightly reflecting the UK market situation. With regards to the Agricultural Development Scheme, ADS, there is a short article in Agri-Food News published last week, that's after the issue of Timwell questions, that provides an update. In brief, in line with my previous wishes, the Department worked up a model scenario that partially recoupled payments to production in the red meat sector. I presented this to the Manx National Farmers Union at an EGM, where it was voted upon and not accepted for a number of reasons. Having worked on the concept, I can see that it would have been very difficult to administer and was perhaps simply too focused on the red meat sector. I am pleased that since that meeting in March, I have had constructive meetings with the NFU to identify the areas where the department could further develop their support for the industry. As a result of this positive progress, my officers are currently working on a new agricultural strategy which will identify a suite of initiatives designed to support active farmers, increase productivity, improve investment in the industry, and importantly support environmental initiatives. It is intended, subject to agreement with the industry, that the final strategy will come to this Honourable Court for approval early in 2019.
Supplementary question, Mrs Caine.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President, and I thank the Minister for his reply. Would the Minister agree and acknowledge that there is serious concern amongst the farming community? In fact, I'm told that just last week, when he says that throughput is reducing, in fact, farmers were sent an email, having been expected to put their stock through this week, actually saying that the meat plant is not accepting sheep, for instance. It will cause some short-term disruption. Well, farmers tell me that they're struggling to feed the stock. There's an increase of stock available wanting to go through the meat plant. They have little communication and knowledge of who is actually running the meat plant. Can the Minister give any reassurances that things will improve for farmers?
Minister to reply.
There are several aspects to that question. First of all, the department is only too aware of the situation with regard to weather, drought, and we've had meetings with the NFU to discuss possible mitigation measures, and those discussions are ongoing. At present, we are unable to assess the real impact. It may rain, there may be late silage cuts or forage cuts, but we do know that some parts of the industry, particularly grain production and bedding, etc., are going to be affected, and they are in the pot for consideration. Now, when it comes to throughput and the policy of the meat plant, it is an arm's length commercial company, and they have to make decisions based on market conditions. Sadly, the whole of the UK has been bathing in this rather nice weather, and there are problems in the supply chain throughout the UK, and the price of animals has dropped considerably, and the meat plant will have to make their own commercial decisions based on what they can sell and what they can use. Fortunately, there are different methods of going to market, and at the same time, if people wish to send animals across because there are problems, they are able to do so. We haven't closed any avenues to market, but it is a commercial decision for the meat plant. On the other hand, the situation with regard to the drought, which is slightly different, we are looking at and hope to come up with some initiatives in due course.
Supplementary question, Mrs. Caine.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. I do thank the Minister, and everybody realises that these are special circumstances and weather that the island hasn't experienced for many years. But I think the issue is one that the farmers are feeling there's a lack of communication. Admittedly, there's something in Agri Update last week, but they have marketing emails from abattoirs from across saying, happy customer, give us your stock. They're not feeling the love from the current meat plant company. Who is running it? Is the Minister confident in the current operation? Is the marketing at fault here? And most of all, is the Minister confident that the meat plant will communicate with the farmers to reassure them that they want the meat plant to be a success? They want to give their stock to the meat plant. There's a lot of confidence when they get letters saying, oh, you booked it in on Monday, well, we're not taking any now next week. But they're still getting the opportunity to send those stock across for a price. And if they can't feed them, and they can't afford to buy in or find any availability of silage to buy in for that stock, then the farmer is left with no option but to move the stock off island.
Minister to reply.
Once again, there are several aspects to that question. First of all, when it comes to selling stock, there are several considerations there. Some animals will be finished and ready to go to market, and obviously market conditions apply, and market price is what they will get for those animals, whether they sell them to the meat plant or across. At the moment, there is no general shortage of fodder or feed. It's still here. The problem will arise later on. Now, I understand that some people have lambs that are near finishing, but they have to make their own marketing judgments on that. I'm looking to the future to make sure that farming is not damaged by the present weather conditions. I take on board what you're saying about communication. I'm not aware of what communications take place between the Isle of Man Meat Company and their customers. That is basically down to commercial operations. DEFRA and the FMA are joint shareholders and appoint the board. We at DEFRA set overall objectives, and the board are tasked with delivering these at arm's length. The board has an executive director who is looking after plant operations, and they have recently appointed a new management team. I believe that the new plant management and new customer and communications managers will be introduced to the industry at the Southern and Royal shows, which are not long in coming, and they will then be able to see who's at the sharp end, as it were. But I will take it up with the chairman of the company and see whether, if communication is not good, we can improve that, or they can improve that, because it's not down to us as DEFRA to do that.
Supplementary question, Mr. Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy President. And as the Honourable Minister has just alluded, I do have the role as chairman of the Isle of Man Meat Company. Would the Minister agree with me that that the reason the structure is as it is because it was impossible to continue and sustain the arrangements that the industry previously had in terms of the Fat Stock Marketing Association, and that the requirement was for change to come into the industry through the management of the meat plants, and that change is uncomfortable for people who've not been used to that, and that some of those changes that we don't seem to be getting any adverse comment to are the significant increase in prices which have been paid to farmers as a result of the changes that have been made, and that there's need that there was a clear need to improve the prices to the farmers, to change the management of the plant and to improve the marketing, and that needed to be underpinned by the effective communication. The board that was set up by DEFRA and the FMA, which includes myself as chairman and as member of the board, is focused on turning around the business, and at 3.5 months in, it is early stages. That there are rooms for further improvement, but that the business is on the right path, despite the special circumstances which caused the action to have to be taken, regrettably, last week.
I'm not sure I found a question in there, but Minister to say yes. What's the question?
I agree entirely, but I'll just comment on some of the things there. Yeah, there was a long history of growing subvention in the meat plant, and it required tackling. Now, we've done it, and I think most of the industry were quite pleased with the fact that we introduced market prices, a balanced market price that was equivalent, or nearly equivalent, to the UK. Unfortunately, we have a bit of a perfect storm at the moment, and we're having to cope with that, as indeed the meat plant are. At the end of the day, we have to be careful with public money, and at the end of the day, we are going to probably have to put some more money in to help farmers retain viability, because they're not just producing meat, they're also custodians of our environment, and that's very important. I see the Treasury Minister shaking his head there. there is a reality about where we are, and I think we did grasp the nettle when we took on the meat plant and made some divisive, definitely good decisions to move the meat plant forward. And sadly, we are in a situation that we didn't anticipate at this stage, and we're just having to cope with it as best we can. And I'm sure the chairman of the meat plant will do his best to communicate with his customers.
Supplementary question, Mrs. Caine.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President, and I thank the Minister for the acknowledgement of the difficult time at the minute and the prospect of more financial support for farmers during this difficult time. Can I just turn to the ADS proposals that he touched on? There's a feeling out there that they will give with one hand and take away with the other. So whereas such as grants for stone wall building and reseeding were in the previous scheme, they're going to come back in, but they'll take that away from the acreage. There's going to be a knock-on effect that food will go up if farmers have more and more costs to bear. Can he clarify when the ADS proposals will be out and how will the scheme be restructured? Thank you.
Minister to reply.
We are working with the Manx NFU to ensure that we get a scheme that is acceptable to the majority of farmers. Their membership represents over 50% of the island's farmers, and had I had my original concept accepted with a return to headage and production incentives, I wasn't going to carry their support. So we worked very hard with them. Now, I can't tell you the actual detail at the moment, but I did commit when I answered the question initially to return to this honourable court probably early in the new year with a scheme that has been agreed with industry. There are always going to be some people that don't like what we're going to do, and they can think of a better way of doing it, and there are always going to be some winners and losers when you change schemes. Now, when you talk about previous schemes, it's been a long time since people got fencing and liming, reseeding support. It's been on an acreage basis for some time. There was a transfer from one scheme to the other. The scheme we have at the moment doesn't provide much of that support at all. The scheme that we're looking at with the NFU may provide some better support, but you are correct, there may be a reduction in the acreage payments as a result of that. But I'm not saying that is set in concrete, because it certainly isn't. We have ongoing meetings with the NFU, and we'll continue to work with them in detail and depth.
If I could just remind the Minister to address the Chair, because we all need to hear, everyone in the court needs to hear what you have to say. We're all most interested. Supplementary question, Ms Edge.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. Can I just ask the Minister, he said that there's financial incentives in place at the current time. Can I ask him what contingency fund this is coming from, or was it already within the budget that there was a contingency set for any difficult times the farmers are receiving? Minister
to reply.
Talking about not being able to hear, I'm sorry, Honourable Member, could you just repeat what you said, because you were turning that way?
One that everyone can hear everything that's being said. Ms Edge.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. Can I ask the Minister, with regards to the financial incentives that he's just mentioned, what contingency fund that is? Is it a fund that was already preset, or is it a fund that he's had to find to be able to support the farmers at the current time?
Minister to reply.
Thank you. I will speak loudly. Check my voice. At present, we have obviously an annual commitment to ADS support and subvention with the meat plant, and we are at present using that money for what it was allocated for. In terms of an emergency fund or emergency relief, we haven't committed any funds yet. and I'm sure that there will be discussions with Treasury and also within the department what contingency we have available to help farmers. But we are early days yet. You know, as I said earlier, the damage has not yet, or the damage has occurred, but the implications of that damage have not yet come through, so we can't quantify it.
Final supplementary, Dr. Allinson.
Thank you, Mr Deputy President. I'd like to thank the Minister for guiding us through what is a very complicated subject. But would he agree that the best way that local people can help farmers is by buying local, whether from farmers' markets or from shops? And the best way that local people can support the meat plant is by buying locally produced meat and rejecting cheap foreign imports.
Here, here. Slightly off subject, but I have to agree. The more we buy local produce, the more we support our local farmers. Thank you for those.